shall we begin?
Let the games begin.
All right.
A new age has begun. An age of freedom.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Get to the chopper!
This is going to be quite the ride.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host, Christian. Thank you very much for joining me on this week's podcast. It is the first podcast episode, not the first podcast of the year, because I already had that. And that was my best of list. My favorite of, I should say. Favorites, frustrating, surprising movies of the year. If you haven't listened to that, go check that out. Highly recommend it. I appreciate that. But this is the first episode of the year. This is the Movie Pit Podcast, in case anybody's new here. Once again, I am your host, Christian. This is where we talk about all of the biggest movie news items of the week. We'll talk about some movie trailers that came out. We'll talk about, usually we will talk about the movies that are out in theaters, but that is no longer the case, of course, because of Corona. But we will be talking about all the movie news, or all the big movie news items that came out this week. There were a lot of trailers that came out this week. I don't have too much to say about them, so I will just leave it up to you to go watch the trailers. Those trailers, by the way, are the new trailer for Cherry, or the first trailer for Cherry, which is the new movie by Tom Holland with the Russo brothers, which looks pretty good, and it's been getting a lot of buzz lately. That will appear on Apple TV. I think that comes out actually relatively soon. There's a new trailer. So there's the first trailer for that. There's a new trailer for Judas and the Black Messiah, which is the movie about Fred Hampton, the Black Panther leader, the one with who was it? Daniel Kaluuya. Daniel Kaluuya, and I believe it's Lakeith Stanfield. That they had an amazing trailer came out for that movie last year, but a new trailer came out, which is equally as good, and a few other trailers that came out as well if you want to go check those out. So those will all be linked down below in the description/show notes area. This podcast is officially just all about the movie news that came out this week. So let's get to it, shall we? First movie news item of the week. It's something that's has become commonplace, unfortunately, and that is some delays. There have been some more delays this week for some movies. First, Sony Pictures delayed Morbius, starring Jared Leto. That has been delayed. It was originally supposed to come out in July of last year, but obviously with COVID and everything shut down, that didn't happen. They pushed it back to March of this year. Unfortunately, that is no longer the case. Sony has moved it to October of this year, so you have to wait a little bit longer on that if you're looking forward toward Morbius. Another movie that was officially delayed is The Many Saints of Newark. That is the prequel movie to the HBO series The Sopranos. That movie was supposed to come out last September. Then they moved it to March as well. That will now come out in September once again. So a full year delay for that movie. That movie will come out in theaters and on HBO Max the same day, because it is part of Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers, of course, will be releasing their film slate for 2021 on same day in theaters and on HBO Max. So there is that. So those are your delays so far. Once again, there you go. The next movie news item is Kevin Feige, while promoting the upcoming Disney Plus series WandaVision. By the time this podcast is up, it'd probably already be up on Disney Plus. Gave a promising update on Deadpool 3. Of course, there were questions in the state of the third movie since the Disney-Fox merger. But now we know, because Feige told Collider.com that Deadpool 3 will be a part of the MCU and will retain its R rating from the previous two movies. That said, the sister duo of Lizzie and Wendy, I'm going to mispronounce their last names, Molex, that's probably not how you say it. There are the writers for Bob's Burgers. They've done a lot of writing for Bob's Burgers, the animated series on Fox, are hard at work on the script, with Ryan Reynolds overseeing the process, because he will also return. Filming on Deadpool 3 won't begin until at least 2022 at the earliest, so we have to wait on that, but that is a nice little big update on Kevin Feige's approach to Deadpool 3. Moving on, speaking of sequel news, a sequel to Anish Changhardi's Searching, that is a movie with John Cho, where he played a father looking for his missing daughter, using her laptop, and it's told through various screens like phones and the laptop, has found its directors. They've been working on that movie for a little bit. Now it's found its directors. The sequel will be directed by Will Merrick and Nick Johnson. If those names don't ring a bell, well, they shouldn't. Merrick and Johnson were actually editors on the movie, and they actually edited Chang Hadi's, I'm pronouncing that his last name wrong, his latest film, Run, which you can watch on Hulu, and it's very, very good. Highly recommend it if you haven't watched it. Run, with Sarah Paulson and a newcomer, which I cannot remember, Kira Allen, I think that's her name. Very, very good movie if you haven't watched it. That came out last year. That is also a movie that I forgot to put on my list. I don't know how I missed that and Tenet at the same time. But Run definitely would have been put on my honorable mention list because that was a very, very good movie. So you should go check that out if you haven't already. Merrick and Johnson, not American Johnson, that sounded weird. Merrick and Johnson will also be writing the screenplay, which is based off the idea of the original director and one of the producers of the first movie. There's no information on what the sequel will be about, but it is reported that the movie will follow new characters. So John Cho will not be expected to return. Moving on, Darren Aronofsky is getting back behind the camera with an adaptation of the 2012 play titled The Whale, written by Samuel D. Hunter. Aronofsky will also write the script and already has a star in Brendan Fraser. Yes, that Brendan Fraser from the Mummy movies that we love so much. The synopsis for the movie is, for the play, is kind of out there. I'm not gonna lie. A 600-pound recluse hiding away from the world and slowly eating himself to death is given one last chance at redemption. In case you need a reminder, the last film that Aronofsky directed was Mother, and that, of course, was met with a very divisive audience, to say the least. It's not clear when production will begin, but longtime Aronofsky cinematographer, who will apparently be working on The Whale, did hint that the movie would be a smaller project for the director. So we'll have to wait and see on what that means. But Aronofsky back behind the camera, Brendan Fraser back on the big screen. That should be a lot of fun, assuming this movie comes out on the big screen in theaters. Moving on pretty quick. It was kind of a slowish news week, so we have to take that into account. Marriage Story director Noah Baumbach will be reuniting with Adam Driver and his frequent collaborator / wife, Greta Gerwig, for an adaptation of Don DeLeo's novel White Noise. Filming will begin in June, and it will be made for Netflix, which, of course, Baumbach and Driver worked together for Marriage Story, which came out on Netflix. The satirical book, which I have never heard of, or never read or heard about, but if they can make it work, more power to them, because the synopsis for this thing is also out there. The satirical book follows a professor of Hitler studies. Yes, you heard that right. Hitler studies, played by Driver, at a liberal arts college in Middle America, who is now on his fourth wife, will be played by Greta Gerwig, when an, quote, airborne toxic event unleashes a lethal black chemical cloud. They must face the danger of their death together. So that sounds kind of interesting. All three of them, Baumbach, Driver, and Gerwig, have worked together in the past on Frances Ha, which was directed by Baumbach and written by Gerwig and also starring Gerwig. So they all worked together. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, Baumbach and Driver worked together on Marriage Story. So obviously they love working together, and they seem to there seems to be a very good combination. Frances Ha was critically acclaimed. There wasn't a massive audience for it, but it was critically acclaimed, and Marriage Story was, of course, critically acclaimed as well, and a lot of audiences really liked it as well. I mean, not all of them, but most of them. At least it was meme worthy, because we see the Adam Driver meme everywhere. But this project obviously could have a lot of eyes thrown at them. Currently, Baumbach and Gerwig are co-writing a Barbie movie for Margot Robbie, who will also be producing the movie, which is being teased as something unique to the icon that is Barbie. You got that going for them. That's, you got one end of the spectrum, and then you have the other end of the spectrum. But yeah. So, all right, let's move on. This is weird in another sense. Armie Hammer. Yes, that Armie Hammer. If you're big on Twitter, you know exactly. You probably know where I'm kind of going with this. Armie Hammer has stepped away from the romantic adventure movie Shotgun Wedding that he was supposed to co-star with Jennifer Lopez, due to some direct messages on Instagram that got wasn't leaked to the public. It was released to the public on Twitter. The messages were out there. If you want to go read them yourself, just prepare yourself for weird sexual fantasies and cannibalism. Yes, you heard me. Cannibalism. Anyway, Hammer did release a statement, which I will read because I won't read any of the messages because that's not what this podcast is. And wow. So here's what he said. He said, quote, "I am not responding to these bullshit claims in light of the vicious and spurious online attacks against me. I cannot in good conscience now leave my children for 4 months to shoot a movie in the Dominican Republic. Lionsgate is supporting me in this, and I am grateful to them for that," end quote. So Hammer has stepped away, and from the sounds of it, it looks like it was kind of a mutual thing. Maybe, at least publicly, it's a mutual thing. Who knows if it really was a mutual thing, but whatever the case, Hammer has now dropped out. They are currently looking for a replacement for him. Hammer is still attached, though, to the sequel to Call Me By Your Name and the TV series The Offer, which is based on the behind-the-scenes story of making The Godfather, which would be, like I mentioned, a TV series. So, yeah, that's that happened this week. I just I don't know. I didn't read the whole thing. I only read a couple of things of it, and I read about what he was saying in another news story. But there was that. David O. Russell's upcoming Untitled movie is putting together quite a cast. Plot details are currently being kept under wraps at the moment, although early rumors suggest that the movie would follow a doctor and a lawyer who team up for some unnamed reason. Already part of the movie is Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, and John David Washington. However, joining them now are, let me catch my breath here for a second, Rami Malek, Zoe Saldana, Mike Myers, Timothy Olyphant, Michael Shannon, Chris Rock, Anya Taylor-Joy, Andrea Riseborough, Matthias, I always mispronounce his last name, Matthias Schoenaerts, that's not how you say his name. He was the guy from The Old Guard, and what's the other movie he was in? Mustang, if some people watch that. Sandro Nivola is in it, and Robert De Niro. That is quite a cast. Russell will also be writing the script, and production is currently underway in LA, so we could probably see some pictures at some point. This is Russell's first movie since Joy, which came out in 2015, although he did do a short movie in 2016 that came out. Obviously, it was a short film, so not a lot of people saw it, but it's there. If you can find it, go check that out. So that is quite a cast. But it is David O. Russell, and I would say he's hit or miss on a lot of his movies. Joy wasn't really a hit for me personally, but David O. Russell knows how to put together a cast, so we can look forward to that. Next movie news item is that Emma Thompson and newcomer Alicia Weir have joined Netflix's adaptation of Matilda, which I didn't even know they were working on. Thompson will play Miss Trunchbull, the cruel headmistress and, let's just say, villain of the movie, while Weir will play Matilda. They join Lashana Lynch, who has already been a part of the movie, apparently. She will play Ms. Honey, the kind teacher that encourages Matilda and her telekinetic gifts. Most of us, maybe at least even me or anyone in my age range, are more familiar with, of course, the 1996 movie that starred Mara Wilson as Matilda, or if you're more inclined, also co-starring Rhea Perlman and Danny DeVito as Matilda's parents. Danny DeVito actually directed Matilda, which, nice little bit of trivia there for anyone who didn't know that. The property itself is based off a Ronald Dahl book, which I always forget about. I always find out, and then I forget, and then when I read something about it, I was like, oh, that's right, he did that. Anyway, the book was then adapted into a musical in 2012 by Matthew Warchus, who is also directing the adaptation for Netflix. Warchus is also bringing his musical team from the play to help him out with the musical. So yes, this adaptation of Matilda will be a musical. No word yet on when production will begin, but with its three main leads already set, we can probably expect it to start sooner rather than later. I was a very big fan of the 90s movie Matilda. I watched that somewhat religiously, but it was a 90s movie. I think some of it still holds up. I haven't seen it in a while, but from what I remember, I could say that probably some of it still holds up. But it should be interesting to kind of see where they go with this. Again, they're going the musical route, which the directors already, had done. Apparently it was a very successful play, from the sounds of it. So that's pretty cool. Apparently Ralph Fiennes played, Mr. Trunchbull in the play. And apparently the director, Matthew Warchus, wanted to bring him along, but, obviously they couldn't make that happen. So instead they got Emma Thompson, which is, a nice replacement, if I do say so myself. But this is pretty interesting. I didn't even know Netflix was doing an adaptation of Matilda, but there you go. Moving on to the next movie news item. Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem are in talks to join writer-director Aaron Sorkin's Being the Ricardos for Amazon. Sorkin will write and direct the movie, which is about the life of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, who of course were the real-life couple that started their own production company, and of course starred in the influential and iconic TV comedy series I Love Lucy. Kidman will play Lucille Ball and Bardem will play Desi Arnaz, while the movie will focus on a week-long production cycle of an episode of the series while the couple deals with showbiz drama. Sorkin has been working on the script and the movie for a while. He originally actually had Cate Blanchett set to play Lucille Ball, but looks like she's dropped out for whatever reason, and Nicole Kidman has now come in. Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz's children, Lucy Arnaz and Desi Arnaz Jr., will be producers on the movie. So it seems like this has the okay from them, obviously, since Sorkin's been working on this for a while. Sorkin has The Trial of the Chicago 7 up on Netflix if you want to go watch that. He's also done a bunch of other stuff. He's written some great movies. The Social Network obviously is one of them. But I love Sorkin. This kind of is in his wheelhouse a little bit with, The Newsroom. If you're a big fan of The Newsroom as much as I was, you know that he has that kind of style, The West Wing. I haven't seen the Chicago of the Chicago 7 yet. I'm hearing some mixed things, but for the most part, when it's really good, then I hear that it's really good, and when it's a little muddled, then it's muddled. But I'm a big fan of Sorkin, so I will watch anything that Aaron Sorkin does. The casting of Kidman and Javier Bardem is interesting. I think I would have gone with someone or at least two people who were a little younger. But that's just even Cate Blanchett. Although seeing Cate Blanchett's name as Lucille Ball, it actually kind of makes sense. And I think probably most of that has to do with the fact that I saw her in, what was that movie called? Where'd You Go, Bernadette? Where she kind of played, not kind of a Lucille Ball character, but she kind of played like that quirky character. And I think those little quirks probably would have helped with Lucille Ball. Nothing against Nicole Kidman, obviously, or nothing against Javier Bardem. I am a huge fan of both, but I don't visually see them as Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. But more power to them if they can make it work. Obviously, Sorkin has picked them for a reason, so I'm all for it when that comes out. All right, let's move on to the next movie news item. Ben Affleck is set to co-write and direct a live-action adaptation of the fantasy novel Keeper of the Lost Cities for Disney. Yeah. The novel was written by Shannon Messenger, who was and is the first of a popular young adult series, which follows Sophie Foster, a telepathic girl who is from another world and must figure out the secrets behind her abilities. Affleck will co-write the movie with Kate Gritmon, who did some work on Game of Thrones. I think she was like one of the writing assistants for the series, so she's has some experience in that fantasy world element. Obviously, this is new ground for Ben Affleck, who's done a lot of crime dramas and thrillers. So this is kind of cool to see him do something a little new, something out of his wheelhouse that he hasn't done. He obviously has kids, so maybe he wanted to finally do something that his kids can go watch. No word yet on when production will start, but Affleck is keeping himself busy both behind the camera and in front of it. So we'll probably have to wait a while for this. Starring wise, in front of the camera wise, he has Deep Water with Ana de Armas, which Apparently they are dating, and they are together, so that's kind of where they met each other. He also has The Last Duel with Matt Damon and Adam Driver starring. He has a small role in it, or he has a supporting role in it, I should say, with Ridley Scott directing, and he has a movie called Hypnotic, which will be directed by Robert Rodriguez. Directing-wise, he has a drama called Ghost Army, and an adaptation of Agatha Christie's Witness for the Prosecution, also on deck. So this is cool. I like it. I like Ben Affleck both behind and in front of the camera. I know a lot of people don't like him behind or in front of the camera, but Live by Night, not including Live by Night, but he's solid. I don't know why a lot of people have a lot of hate on him, but I like it, and I kind of like this. Again, this approach of him doing this, again, I think he's probably just doing something for his kids. And, when you think of Ben Affleck, you don't automatically think of a fantasy movie or especially one for Disney. But, hey, more power to him if he can make this work out. This next movie news item is, it's not surprising, but considering how we got to this point, it is pretty frustrating. I won't get too into it because, admittedly, I've only been following kind of all of the drama through headlines and little bits here and there of where I've on Twitter and from other podcasts. So we're mainly just going to focus this little part on the actual news part, the long battle between DC Films president, I should say, Walter Hamada and Ray Fisher, who played Cyborg in Justice League, is over. Quotation marks over. Fisher did very publicly vow. Yes, he vowed. They didn't say that he just wasn't going to do it. He vowed that he would never work with Hamada again, and that has affected not only his career but with Warner Brothers and DC Films in tow with the Flash movie. It was reported that Fisher's Cyborg has been removed from the Flash movie, which has been in the works for some time now. Of course, the last thing we heard about the Flash movie was that it will star Michael Keaton as his Tim Burton version of Batman and Ben Affleck's version of Batman as well. So the move is unsurprising. Obviously, Fisher has been going at it with DC Films and Warner Media for a while after he came out and accused Joss Whedon of abusive behavior on set of Justice League during their reshoots. Jason Momoa came on board and backed Ray Fisher up. Gal Gadot also backed Ray Fisher up to some extent. And everyone has been even saying what Ray Fisher being saying that he blamed Hamada for not taking the accusation seriously, while also spreading lies and misinformation about Fisher, while also undermining the investigation that had started in order to protect himself, Hamada, and his friend and former DC Films co-president Jeff Johns. Fisher did release a lengthy post on social media to talk about everything and talk about the process and how he felt and everything. So if you want to go check that out, I highly recommend it, especially if you've been keeping up with everything that's been going on with Fisher and Warner Media and DC Films. It's easy to bash on DC Films and how Warner Brothers has taken the DC properties with their approach. And, we make fun of it. I make fun of it all the time. I loved bashing, I love bashing it, but only because it was so easy and because they give us the fuel to light the fire of bashing them. And it's a shame because, Warner Brothers is one of those studios. It's one of the most prolific and iconic studios that there is. And it's a shame to see them, pretty much muff every single property that they have, almost every single property they have on the DC side. Animated wise, they're killing it. The animated movies are awesome, but it's the live action movies that are kind of, lackluster or not, going to their full potential. We have the Snyder Cut coming out on HBO Max, which, I think one of the last things I talked about on the podcast before I took my big break was the Snyder Cut and how I wasn't really that excited for it. I think the whole idea of the Snyder Cut has become almost cult-like, and but I said if it's actually good, then great. But I don't know how we go from here. But this is obviously something completely different because Ray Fisher, who admittedly this was him playing Cyborg was the biggest thing that happened to him at the time, because Ray Fisher wasn't really a Hollywood actor. He was a play guy. He was a Broadway guy. He was a stage guy. He wasn't a movie actor. Cyborg was his big break into Hollywood, and to see that kind of just diminish. Sorry about that. Hit my table. I don't know if you heard that, but to see that diminish into what it's to what it's become and everything is kind of disheartening, and it's a shame to see Fisher. I mean, we haven't really seen him in too much other stuff. He hasn't appeared in a lot of other stuff, and maybe because of this investigation going on, and then Corona, it's affected him getting other roles. Who knows what will happen with this? But he has the backing of a lot of people online. He has the backing of Momoa and Godot, and I don't know. It's frustrating. It's shameful that this has happened. Especially if all the accusations are true. But I am taking Fisher's word for it. But at the same time, it's hard to not know, the full story. We're only hearing Ray's side, and yes, we do have the benefit of the doubt, and I am believing him into a lot of extent. Whedon's attitude has been something that has been accused beforehand. He's been supposedly a little difficult to work with in the past, but it's just this whole idea that Fisher's career, I'm not saying it's over, but just the way that everything has happened so far, it's disheartening. It's really disheartening, and I'm glad that Fisher's can move on. It's a little upsetting that what's going to happen. I mean, the whole DC, extended universe or whatever it's called, whatever they're deciding to call it now, it's so fractured. It's so, one of the things that I always talk about, one of the things that I always say, when I talk about the DCEU, I'll just call it DCEU, is that it's like the whole idea of it. It's like a chicken with its head cut off. They don't know what to do. A lot of things are standalone movies. A lot of things are somewhat connected to each other, not fully connected to each other. It's the world itself is so just disjointed that making fun of it is really easy because they give us the fuel to light that fire. And I don't know. I just feel that all of this could have been done better and could have been done, without this. And Grant, it's just, I don't know. I have no more words to speak on it because it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for them, and I'm not even a part of it at all. But I wish nothing but the best of luck to Ray Fisher in his career. Hopefully he does a lot more stuff in the future. Hopefully this doesn't, obviously it doesn't sound like this is discouraging him. But it's obviously frustrating more for him because, it looked like he was all on board for this. And then, this whole thing with Whedon and the investigation and again, Hamada, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. Again, we don't know. We don't know fully, doing things that would undermine the investigation. It's just, it's, I don't know. There's so many times I can say heartbreaking and disheartening and shocking in one, breath, but it's what it's what it is. So if you want to follow all the drama, I'm sure someone has pointed out a timeline of everything that's been going on, but I wish nothing but Ray Fisher. I wish nothing but all the luck to Ray Fisher, and hopefully we get to see him in more stuff, and hopefully, this doesn't impact his idea of Hollywood, I guess. So finally, the last movie news item of the week, at least at the time of this recording, is a last big movie news item anyway. Obviously, there's always something big that drops after I upload the podcast because that's just how it works out. But Deadline. So this started off as a news item that kind of just, went wild. And then the person that is involved in this rumor ended up coming out and just deflated everything. Deadline reported that Chris Evans was expected to reprise his role as Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, in the MCU in some form or another. So originally, sources told the outlet that the deal was not closed, but the deal would have been for Evans to return in at least one Marvel property, with the possibility of a second one. And they stressed that his involvement will be similar to that of Robert Downey Jr.'s involvement in Spider-Man Homecoming. So it kind of would have been like a small role, kind of cameo-wise sort of thing. So Chris Evans then later came out. So this rumor kind of dropped Thursday morning, afternoon, and it just kind of went buck wild. And then Chris Evans came out in the afternoon that same day and tweeted, "News to me." That's what he tweeted. And, you know, everyone was kind of having their moment, and then he tweeted that. So this could be, you know, let's just for argument's sake say that this could be Evans just deflecting and, you know, trying to lessen down the news because it was supposed to be a surprise. But at the same time, I'm inclined to believe him a little bit. Evans was very public about, you know, hanging up the shield, quote unquote, after Endgame. I mean, Steve Rogers' story pretty much did come to an end with Endgame. You know, it was a good way to write him off from the movies, obviously with the chance of him probably appearing again in some way, shape, or form, like in a flashback, or, you know, with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, obviously in the multiverse and everything like that. Maybe bring him back for like a cameo or something, surprise guest appearance in Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney Plus. So they could have done that. So that's probably what they could have done or something to that extent. I don't know. But there's really no reason to bring him back. Like I mentioned, his story is pretty much over. And I love Chris Evans. Don't get me wrong. I love Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, as Captain America. He's probably one of the best written characters that Marvel has done in the movies. And he probably has the best trilogy and the best movies of the entire MCU. But like I mentioned, they pretty much finished up this story at the end of Endgame. I don't see. I mean, the only reason really to bring him back at this point is just to make money. It's just to bring people into the movie theater to make money. That's pretty much what it is. But, you know, if Evans is deflecting, then maybe he will appear in some way, shape, or form. If Evans wanted to come back, I wouldn't blame him. You know, it's fine. But at the same time, it's like, we got to let these people go. We got to let these people, and by people, I mean the actors, if they wanted to move away and do something else, let them do it. I forgot who it was. It was someone that I followed, and I think it was one of my people that I've met online, said that we have to stop. We have to stop, you know, chaining these actors to certain roles, just because it fits our needs or something along those lines. And I agree with that. And you know, I get it. You know, obviously Chris Evans has, and obviously we all feel this way. We all feel very strongly because Chris Evans was, in a lot of ways, became our Captain America. He was the Captain America that we loved in the comics, that we love watching on screen. But in a lot of ways, it's, again, his story ended. They wrote him off at the end of Endgame. So I don't, you know, so I'm conflicted in the fact that if they do bring him back, I just hope that it's like a small role or something in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because that's what makes the most sense of him coming back. It would be in that series, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That would make the most sense if they brought him back for like a small role or something. As for like a movie role, I don't know where he would fit. It would have to be something like Doctor Strange. But if it's anything, I don't know. Like personally, I can't even think. I'm sure someone out there is like, oh, they could bring him back in this, but I can't. Right now, my mind just is empty of where they would bring him back. But again, that's just me. If they bring him back, fine. You know, I'm all for it. I love Chris Evans. I love him playing Steve Rogers, Captain America. That's great. But if they don't bring him back, I won't be that disappointed. I kept my emotions in check, because it's like, oh, when I saw it was like a knee-jerk reaction, like, oh, wow, okay. And then I thought about it, I was like, well, they didn't really need to bring him back. But again, if they bring him back, fine, whatever. So yeah, that's it, everybody. That's all the movie news items that came out this week. Like I mentioned, there was some trailer. Oh, where did my voice go? There were some trailers that came out this week. Those will all be linked down below in the description/show notes area. While you're down there, you might as well go check out all the other links. If you're listening on YouTube and you prefer to listen to your podcast on the go, the podcast is on Apple Podcasts. It is also on Stitcher and Spotify. If you want to go check take the podcast on the go. Or if you prefer listening on those platforms, then there you go. If you're listening on one of those platforms, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And if you want to go check out the other platforms, you can. There you go. What else is down there? My WordPress account, which I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do, because I was going to get back into writing reviews this year. And obviously, we're still in the pandemic and COVID, and there's not a lot of movie theaters. So I might have to start doing reviews on the movies that come out online, like on Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and all that. So I'm still trying to figure out what's going to happen over there. But stay tuned on that if you want to go. Just put that in your bookmarks for the future. Social medias are also down there. I'm trying to use the Twitter posts or the Twitter for the podcast a little bit more. Also trying to figure out what to do on there as well. I might start doing like polls and stuff, asking you guys for opinions, which I do anyway when I put stuff up. But so yeah, that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. Very much appreciate it. Trying to get back in the groove. I haven't podcasted in a while. If I'm rusty, I felt like I'm talking too fast. I made a tweet on my personal Twitter account that when I did the last podcast, I had to stop every now and then because I forgot to breathe, because I was just talking and talking and talking. I just forgot to breathe. So, I'm shaking the rust off a little bit. Let me get back in the groove. Hopefully that happens. So, all right. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. Really appreciate it. Thank you to all of you who subscribe and follow and all that good stuff. I see you. I acknowledge you. Thank you very much. And yeah. So be safe, be good people. If you have to go outside, please remember to wear your mask. Please remember to be careful and be considerate of other people, and wash your hands, and just be safe and don't do anything dumb, guys. Don't be stupid. That's the main takeaway. Don't be stupid. Thank you guys so much for listening. Have a good day. Have a good weekend whenever you listen to this podcast. And I will see you guys next time.
Whoop, whoop, yeah! Give it up! Movies!